Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello and welcome to episode 186 of...
Hello and welcome back to the German national habits.
Old habits. Yeah. At least I can drive this one, so you don't have to. But but this is Flesh and Pod. This is episode 186.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake. I didn't get to do that during the Nats cast, so we need to get those out of the system. My name's Logan. I'm your host, and with me, as always, is man of the people, Mike Tyson enthusiast, Darick Oswald. Darick, we know what you did in Flesh and Blood for once.
Yeah,
you did a thing.
It still wasn't playing the game.
No, it wasn't. But it is.
But it was casting with you for the German National Championship, which was a ton of fun, an absolute blast. I couldn't be happier really with an event from a coverage side in terms of content, because we literally went all the way until the finals before we had a situation where we weren't featuring at least one new hero on the broadcast. Right. Yes, I know there's always room for improvement, right? So I ended up going back. I was watching. I saw the chat stuff, and it's funny because it was something that we had already talked about with Heiner and crew, which was, hey, it might behoove us to try to see if we can figure out a way to do backup matchups next year. One of the things is there's just the one streaming setup this time, right? So you can only feature one. And yes, sometimes there's going to be explosive games. We know that. It's actually just a pretty fast meta in general right now. And then the few times that we did have what were likely going to be longer games, there was a judge call for one. There was some other explosive turns. So nothing's perfect. But if I'm being honest, again, content-wise, everything was exciting. Even the limited portions I felt were very entertaining from a spectator standpoint. And I don't know that folks understand what it's like. I know we talked about the time zone stuff, but what it's like from a production standpoint when you have crew in person in Germany trying to coordinate things, and then send stuff to the both of us so that we are then casting over it, and then communicate that back and forth. And then they had their own broadcast that they were essentially sending to us, and then we were broadcasting over top of it. So they controlled some of the transitions. We controlled some of the transitions. It was this really wild daisy chain, and I think did a pretty good job, all things considered. It was fun, right? But when I try to step back and I do the objective analysis with everything that we were doing, I feel like it went really well.
Yeah, so let's go out of order from the show notes, because fuck it, we don't really care about order anyway.
Oh, there's show notes? My bad.
For fuck's sake. And let's just hop right in and talk about the German Nats cast. So, had a great time. 2 a.m. is a little early to try to interpret the art on cards transmitted via webcam across the ocean. But all things considered, I mean, we're talking about in a super indie broadcast. This is really their first time doing anything of scale, and watching the cast, you wouldn't know it.
No,
because it looks really good. Everything was, there was only a couple of tech hiccups, which is impressive for 20 hours of stream uptime. And like Darick said, just the daisy chain of technology. We Frankensteined, theory crafted and Frankenstein that entire cast together less than 24 hours before we went live. And we had plan B, plan A, and plan A didn't work. So we went to plan B. Plan B might have worked, but we realized that plan C, which nobody had thought of yet, was actually probably going to work better. So we went and tried plan C, but plan C shifted production from me to Darick on our side. And then that kind of shifted some of the ultimately control of the broadcast. And so, in this show, a lot of the times I'm driving. And even when we've casted Alpha Clash together and stuff like that, a lot of times I'm on the intros and outros. But this time, because I couldn't see Darick at all. And I
that's the other part. Logan couldn't see me the entire time.
Not the whole time.
I could see him, but he couldn't see me.
And I couldn't see when the stream was going to go live. So I had no idea, outside of Darick telling me your mic is going hot in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But he couldn't count me in because otherwise the count in would show up on mic. So I had to do it in my head, and it wasn't working. So we just shifted that role. And Darick is a fucking professional, so obviously it's seamless. Doesn't actually matter at all. And it actually is just better because he's better at it than I am. But there is that. We
also had so when I took over for production, I didn't have all of the scenes set up the way that I wanted. So there was like one of the transitions where when I go to their feed, it wasn't maximized from their thing yet. So
the
then
very first time, yeah.
Yep, I had to fix my studio mode because it wasn't taking the OBS has a couple of different modes, and when you're in studio mode, you can prep one scene while you're in another, but it wasn't taking my changes. So like I had to fix that while like live on the broadcast, among other things. The graphic for Logan and I was something I made like the night before because that's when we decided, I'm gonna do the production. I guess I'll throw together a 2-cam thing, and everything was.
And because of the daisy chain, I was a half second behind you on video.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times it was slightly discordant, but I thought we covered it up pretty well to not make it super discordant. But a lot of times it kind of like made me look like a genius when I was prognosticating something that had actually just happened. Like it like split second then happens, but it's like, no, not really. There was so many, but ultimately the fact that this worked is also just sort of brilliant in and of itself. And we look at our viewership, and because even since we cut off live, we've had I think 4,000 views on the VOD.
That's
on
great.
Just the day 2 VOD since it went up. And it's funny because a buddy of mine who was watching the Magic Pro Tour this weekend, because there's a Magic Pro Tour this weekend, he knew I was doing this, and we were out watching Tyrese Halliburton's Achilles tear in half last night, and which thoughts and prayers on that one. But and he was like, hey, what was your viewership like? And I was like, I think at peak we're at like 1.5, 1.6K views. And he's like, for the German national championships of Flesh and Blood. Like, yeah, that was in the finals. Yeah. He's like, the finals of the Pro Tour for Magic in Vegas viewership was 6K. And I'm like, ooh, that's good. That's not good. That's bad. And he's like, yeah, it's wild that you had a quarter of their peak views, for the German national championship of Flesh and Blood. And I was just like, well, growing game. It's kind of more exciting to watch in my mind. That was, I think, a lot of it. And also, again, we presented a good cast. It's also part of the consideration is we were really the only thing going for the most part at the times we were going. Canada was starting their day 2 just as we were ending. So it worked out great. And obviously we had that bridge where we had Europe, a lot of European views that were happening at the time. And then slowly as the time zones got up, we just kept picking up viewers. It was great in that regard. And obviously I got to sit there for 20 hours and talk to one of my best friends. And
And me, not just
and
Heiner,
you,
and me.
and you, yeah. And honestly, working with the team from White Rabbit Community Game Store was a joy. The guy doing production, Firat, was phenomenal, and he was very adaptable. When we requested something, he was like, "No problem, I'll get it put together," and had it done usually in a heartbeat. And then we were given the necessary tools to succeed or fail at our leisure, and I think that ultimately it was a success. There are things that could have gone better. We had a lot of downtime. Some of that was they didn't have a setup to show a featured drafter drafting. So during the drafts, there was nothing.
Yeah.
And
so going a step further, there was supposed to be an artist, but then the artist got sick.
Yeah, doing alters on cam and stuff like that. But the artist got sick. And so there was something slotted for there, and it just was like, well, we don't have that. It's like, we don't have anything either, because anybody we could pull in is currently asleep. So that doesn't work. Then there's the LSS structure that they give to the event, which is 3 rounds of CC and then 6 rounds of draft. So 2 drafts equals day 1, and then 3 rounds of CC and cut to top 8 equals day 2. That structure is not defined by the host of the event. It's defined by LSS, but it makes for difficult casting especially when we don't have the setup for drafters. But these are all things we've talked about with Heiner now. And so when we do this again, we'll have a better, we'll have something better to fill that time. Backup matches were obviously a discussion. Because sometimes the best match for us to feature it could either go kind of long and be really interactive and a lot of back and forth. It could be somebody's just getting blown the fuck up in 20 seconds, which was the first 2 matches we cast. Mm-hmm. A Vincent absolutely nuked a Levia, and the Levia player immediately got memed. Thank you, Summer, for doing God's work yet again. And then we immediately we had a Syndra player throw a 33 shot across the bow and just ate that one up. That was done. And then our third CC match, we had a Dory that sent a ton of damage in 1 turn at a Gravy Bones. But that matchup got interesting just because of a few simple mistakes that the Dory player made early that came back to bite him in the worst way possible. And anybody, and again, if you're one of those people that watches the VOD or whatever is looking at it and going, oh, that's so stupid, blah, blah, blah. Hey, you try playing a feature match under the lights and and you're playing into your best matchup. You think everything just went right and you don't do a thing. It's fucking hard. And it is what it is, but watching that matchup was actually really intriguing. So we had one that turned out that way. Then all of day 2 stuff was actually quite interesting. That was really fun. And then hats off, obviously, to Sebastian Kleiner for taking Slippy to a victory.
Yeah.
Which Darick had no faith at all.
I mean, you picked
the Azalea to win. You had no faith.
I did, yeah.
I didn't. I picked the Slippy to win.
I took what's called the safe bet. You see, either I am correct or I'm happy.
So you took the emotional hedge.
Yes.
Okay. I I can understand. I bet against my favorite teams all the time. Because either they win and I'm happy.
Yeah.
Or they lose and I made money. It's also it's very interesting because the calculus I use anymore varies based on the importance of the game. So I look at a game and it's like, okay, how much money would I pay for Green Bay to win this game? Okay, that's how much I'll bet. Last year, first game of this, the first game we played against the Vikings on the season, my insect brain was very, very hungover, and I'm like, "Fuck the Vikings! I'd spend $1,500 to see Green Bay win." So I slammed $1,500 on the Vikings money line, which was plus, by the way, and then the Vikings won, and I was just like, "Well, I'm actually still sad." So apparently, I would have paid more. Shit. Well, I should have had more, I guess. Oh well.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the matchups a bit, because we did see some interesting stuff. Which matchup stood out to you the most for the classic constructed rounds that we cast throughout the day?
I'm gonna say this, and I know full well what the result is going to be, but I want you to understand it's not because of how it ended, okay?
All right.
The Gravy Jarl matchup was very intriguing up until the judge call, in part because the power of Jarl, as opposed to some of the other Guardians, Bravo and Victor, was actually on display in that matchup by blowing up the compass, right? By destroying the boots. And that is something that Jarl does far easier than the others. And I think, if I'm being honest, it's also the reason Jarl was still in that matchup, because I think Gravy is a hard matchup for Guardian.
Yeah.
But up until that point, it was going down to the wire. Like, health totals were tight. Decks were both starting to get like kind of to that, scary critical mass, down to the nitty gritty. Like, it was a good matchup up until then. So like, that's the one that intrigues me, and I think it would be neat to see that at other events and how it would unfold.
Yeah, unfortunate that we didn't get to see that play out to its natural conclusion. For anybody that hasn't watched, there was a judge call and a game loss issued for that match on the Jarl player. But up until that point, so on turn 1, there was a counter put on the compass, and then the compass was blown up the next turn. So nuking the compass, and then repeat process a couple of turns later on the Mage Master boots. So it turned into a no compass, no boots for the Gravy side. So Gravy was doing their best to just kind of pump out what they could at the time. We're trying to get 2 allies on board. Seemed like anytime they got 2 allies on board, though, there was an answer, a clean answer from the Jarl player. And so it was very tight, very back and forth. We were down to 0 chums, 0 whalers, 1 rigger, and 2 sawbones, and I believe a swabby left on the Gravy side. But we'd seen all the E-strikes and all but 1 Oakenold out of the Jarl side, so it was getting thin on both ends. And the hammer, it wasn't going to be able to take out a resolved Sawbones. So it was starting to get close. But unfortunately, we didn't get to see the natural conclusion of that one. The one that fascinated me as I watched it unfold was, I think, the Ocilio Levia matchup,
because the Ocilio deck looked really cool.
Really,
not gonna lie.
And the Levia player strategy, I think it's accurate. I think it's a good strategy. Was AB0 and make them have it, like make them dictate the game. And a couple of very early turns, the Ocilio deck bricked on having any arcane damage attack because they were playing 5 lightning cards and just couldn't find it. We were finally hit a critical turn where the Levia player blood rushed. Finally found some resources, but to do 2 big attacks with that probably would have closed the game. So they rolled Scab Skins and rolled a 3. They needed the action point, so they blew Gambler's Gloves because they knew that they couldn't survive this turn if they didn't, which is accurate, that they wouldn't have survived the turn. So then they rolled Scabskins again, rolled a 1, took blood debt down to, I believe, 1, which AB 0, any arcane damage, you're dead. And then heads up, in a very heads up play, the Acilio player amped up the damage just in case there was like a calming breeze or a respite, like played around the things that could possibly be there but wouldn't be there. Just because it's just good logic to do so. And but we on the booth knew, any arcane damage ends this.
Yeah.
That one intrigued me a ton because I thought that, okay, Acilio starts slightly lower life, their cards don't block. Can they pressure Levia enough to make this, to make effectively Levia have to take risks that normally they wouldn't, and that's exactly what happened. So I thought that one was fantastic. I loved watching that one, and also again the Acilio deck looked really cool, like playing cards that are completely pointless in the matchup, just because bouncing them with like Blast to Oblivions and stuff like that to keep the arcane, like to keep the lightning count going. I had never seen it operate in person, just on Talishar, and usually I just kind of tune out until they're done, and I kind of look, am I dead yet? No? Okay, well, I'll take my turn now. But talking through it and watching it on stream as it happened was super interesting, and that's the one that kind of stuck out to me. The other thing that stuck out to me was the limited was fucking awesome.
Yeah. The limited was... I felt very interesting, and in particular, what jumped out to me was that, so Gravy kind of felt the same throughout, but the other two heroes, both Puffin and Marlin, it felt like there were different versions, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously Marlin, you've got the big harpoon versus the, smaller arrows or attempt to go wide or a bit more economical. Puffin obviously has like the mechanologist stuff as well, but even when we were seeing, nimblism.deck, like it was still refreshing, right? Like the sub packages within each configuration was nifty. And I also did enjoy, I said it a bunch on the broadcast yesterday, but I just also really enjoy how much Treasure Island matters in limited.
Yeah.
And it really does kind of make it feel like its very own experience because of that.
Yeah, Treasure Island had so much play because we saw numerous points in game where the damage itself didn't really matter on an attack to the game at all. But there were 3 or 4 counters on Treasure Island, and those gold tokens were going to matter an absolute ton. And so blocks happened if this was a game of, if this was a game without the macro, they would have said, yeah, take 5, whatever, who cares? But in this case, it was, I can't let you have 4 gold tokens, because if I do, you just have access to your entire deck and also your hero power, and all of that snowballs, and I can't win that. I can't win through that. So Treasure Island turned into a thing that mattered a ton. It was interesting to see, although the way that the expeditions were played, when we saw them played out, especially mid to late game, that add extra counters to Treasure Island, and those were usually just super successful in forcing extra blocks, just forcing extra cards out of your opponent's hand. And I thought that was really unique and cool too. The Nimblism Scurv deck obviously was very fun. I still wonder if, I believe it was Max Klein that had drafted that. I still wonder if that Scurv was a Pack 2 Scurv. Because
it did feel like it, or it maybe the only other thing, again, we didn't get to see the draft. The only other thing that crossed my mind when I was thinking about it later was, what if somebody put him on Scurv and started gobbling the pirate stuff, right? And
possible.
That could have been how he ended up with the crack bobble as well.
Yeah. And so I was like trying to run through that in my head, like how does that work? It was crazy to watch it was a pod of 3 Puffin, 3 Marlin, 1 Gravy, 1 Scurv. And the 1 Gravy didn't make the finals. It was a Puffin and a Marlin in the finals of that draft pod. And the Puffin's deck was absurd. I was like, how? Like, just how?
Yeah,
what happened to the
know.
other players? And also just incredibly well played too. So there is that. That was the Acilio player playing a deck that operates on sort of the similar axis by throwing things into play and having these a lot of intricate like play lines that have to be executed correctly and sequenced correctly. So it kind of felt right for the Acilio player to execute that deck as in such a quality way. Like that totally tracked. And the funniest so the funniest one was actually so there was a life total discrepancy and a judge call, and they finally got it all figured out or whatever, and then the opponent just then put a King Kraken Harpoon into Arsenal and gave it overpower. It didn't actually fucking matter whatsoever. Like 0%. I was like, sure. That 1 point of life didn't have any bearing at all. Now it could have, right? Like if there was a way, if there was a block card plus a card to block with, and so absorb 7 of it, take 3, go to 1 is different than dead, but there was not, or a reaction, blood in the water or something along those lines. Although it was I don't think it was a Gravy Bones, but I think it was a Marlin versus a Puffin, but either way, or a Marlin Mirror, one of the two. But either way, it was, the discrepancy and then just here, just kill you anyway. It doesn't actually, fuck it, whatever. Big cannon go boom. So I honestly would 1,000% do it again, even the early mornings, kind of long days. I mean, then again, I'd do pretty much anything for Heiner anyway. And, but it was a ton of fun. And hopefully get a chance to do it next year. We've already had some discussions around it, so hopefully get a chance to do it again next year. Hopefully get a chance to do other things too. But it's because it's a really good time. Now, Darick is the more photogenic and hireable of us, so that probably should happen first. But, anytime I can come along for the ride, I'd be more than happy to.
But I don't know about all that.
I do. There were other nationals though that occurred over the weekend.
There were.
And Syndra was the deck for the weekend apparently. That was the tops on the list with 4 wins, including Canada. So Syndra out there just farming gravies and winning events through not, the natural predators not really being as viable is the wrong word, but as prevalent. Aurora being gone is helpful, New being gone is helpful, and Gravy being a popular deck is helpful because, less Vin sets, which are horrible matchups. Guardian being back shies people off Prism, which is a horrible matchup. So yeah, you wind up... Prism is winnable, but not... I mean, it takes a lot of their bricking. Yeah. So Syndra being the top of the field does not surprise me whatsoever. Then everything was really split. So you had Mario, Azalea, Dash IO, Gravy Bones, Prism, Verdance, and then the Slippy that won German Nats as your other decks. This very interesting to me. You wind up with this big massive spread, and we talked about it during our coverage. It was really diverse. Like there were, I believe, 15 Gravy Bones, 130 players, 15 Gravy Bones, 13 Syndras, and nothing else in double digits. Florian was bottomed out in, I think, every event, really.
I mean, honestly, seeing what happened to Florian makes me want to bring Huntsman out of retirement, because that's been my biggest concern.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern with playing Huntsman is you're playing Huntsman,
Yeah.
but that's about it. Yeah, there's that. But if you're not interested in winning games, I guess do it. But Dash IO doesn't surprise me. Marionette kind of surprises me. Azalea I thought was going to be a good pick all weekend. Gravy Bones obviously is Gravy Bones and Verdance obviously we know are good. Prism we know can farm some of those matchups as well. And Slippy was the interesting one to me, because Slippy's disruption wound up being the thing, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't the pressure from Slippy necessarily. It was just how disruptive the deck was, and the guessing games because of Slippy's ability that players had to play around. Like a masterclass against Azalea. There was on the broadcast. So what happened on the broadcast is a Bonds hit on turn 1, right?
Yeah.
And the Bonds showed a Seek and Destroy, a Lace with Frailty, a Knock the Death Whistle, and I believe it was like either a Release Attention or Read the Glide Path. It was another pump. And the Slippy player elected to take the Seek and Destroy out of the deck. And it was like, but there's a Knock the Death Whistle like right there. And it was like, okay. So then they did it again a couple of turns later and took the Lace with Inertias out of the deck. And so Darick rightfully figured out, oh, they just want to make sure that their arsenal always stays intact.
Yep.
Because the 5-card hand is going to matter a ton. Then we saw the Red in the Ledger start coming, and it was almost always attack reactions sitting in arsenal that were giving Slippy turns that the Red in the Ledgers just didn't fucking matter. It was like, smarter than me. That's right. Just smarter than me. Got it. I mean,
that's also, again, it's the benefit of knowing your matchups, right? It's one of those things where they have probably determined specifically against Azalea that the arsenal disruption matters more than the Remorseless or the Red in the Ledger is coming back, right? And so the minute that you strip them of those, then you can be more flexible. And it wasn't even, I mean, the attack reactions helped a ton, but it wasn't even just the attack reactions either, right? It's making sure that your combo cards, like if you draw them out of sync, right? Because there are a couple of things that work very well in Slippy, whether it's Kiss of Death or other things, you want to sequence things a certain way. And if you don't draw them together, usually your go-to is you make the best turn that you can and you arsenal one of those pieces for later. So against Azalea, just getting rid of the Seek and Destroys, getting rid of the Lace with Inertias, getting rid of any of the things, that could strip it. And it makes sense, right? Against other heroes, for example, if you had the opportunity to remove Command and Conquer, you probably would, right? Because who wants to deal with that? So I get it. And it was very effective. I really credit Sebastian for understanding the matchup and just playing to the resource advantage, right? Made great use of 2-card hands, 3-card hands, made sure to stay at parity, blocked with 3 cards pretty often. Didn't even feel that bad about it. So
nope, was playing Guardian a good amount of the time of 1 turn on, 1 turn off. It's just the on turns were so good that the off turns felt almost irrelevant at times. And then you also just had and Azalea bricked so hard on turn 0. It was they had to play Nika had to play a Codex of Frailty on 0 targets in graveyard just to give a Frailty token and have a Ponder token to try to find some action on turn 0. No attacks. It was very bad. And the look on Sebastian's face when it happened was like, oh, okay. And that's when the Bonds turn happened. Because honestly, Sebastian probably drew his hand and looked at it and went, well, that sucks. I went to block with the Bonds. And then just didn't have to.
Right.
It's like, oh, shit. All right. That's great. So, but yeah, still hats off. Well, it's super well played and was exciting to cast. Quick LL check. Azalea is now sitting at 946 points. So I would imagine that she gets over the line through Nats.
Got to be close.
Yeah. Syndra is only a 0.5 hero, so it has not hit a year legal yet. So instead of the 56 points Syndra would have got 28 for 4 wins. So my thought, what I want to talk through is the new system. Is it working? What do you think?
I think so. I think it's honestly just too early to tell. I would be more concerned if there was another Aurora, right? A vast sweeping majority of, one hero standing above the rest. If they're making half the points and thinking, okay, like this is what we have to deal with for the immediate future. But the reality is the meta right now is very deep. Like, yes, like you said, Syndra had a good weekend. We kind of expected it. Gravy Bones is showing up a bunch, but it's also most of the events I've looked at, he's been the number 1 or number 2 most represented deck. So popular heroes usually, even with a poor conversion rate, will still end up with 1 or 2 in a top 8. And he's just fun, right? Like, I think, as folks are like, well, okay, it's another hero that was released and jumps right to the front of the line or whatever. I think the other thing you have to remember is that the Necromancer class was teased when the game launched.
Yeah,
it's been players who've been here for, all of that time, they've waited 5 years for this class to show up. I think it's fine. Again, I think it's too early to tell. I think we'll have to wait for our first real, weather the storm kind of moment when, something feels a little too fast out of the gate. But when that happens, I also am just trusting that LSS will be a little more aggressive with their targeted suspensions when that occurs. Mm-hmm. But for now, I think it's fine. Yeah.
So I think the system's working as intended. Otherwise, people would be like, oh, shit, Syndra's speed running, right? But not, right?
Right.
Syndra's not a giant problem. It has a lot of natural predators. Can lose matchups to itself, like also happens. I think that this is a super stable meta. And I'm here for it, right? Like, I think stability is what people kind of look for, not this super swingy... there's this one deck and everybody else type of meta. I think that people really want a stable, okay, you have, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's 8 viable heroes that we just saw this weekend take events, and that's without a Jarl winning anything. That's without a Kano winning anything. That's without any warrior winning anything, which that's normal. That's without, just a ton of different viable heroes doing anything at all. So, Florian, even like we saw Florian was the best deck when Aurora was the quote unquote best deck. And Florian's not on the list. And Florian was left at home by a lot of people. We listed off 0 rune blades. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, Verdance is a rune blade, which...
yeah, maybe.
I mean, I'll hear the argument.
Also, to that, though, there were rune blades that were performing well, right? Like, just because they didn't crack it or whatever. Right. I mean, the Vinsets actually really impressed me from what I've seen, right? I'll be the first to admit it. I was not respecting Vinset, right?
Mm-hmm.
it might be a time to really start considering, you know, game planning for that particular hero in the 80, because it is looking real finally.
Yeah. I mean, Vinset is a real deck that can cause real problems. There will be splash damage on Vinsets because of handling Gravy Bones, graveyard shenanigans. So there will be some splash damage, I'm sure, because you'll want to try to turn cards face down if you can, that are in graveyards and things like that. So some of the widespreads and stuff like that, like the yellow widespreads and things like that, getting turned down is a thing that can happen. So you get some splash damage from that. But there's really no good way to interact with the Banner Stone necessarily, but things like Erase Face are very good against Gravy Bones and also pretty good against Vinset. Then there are other cards that remove colors from Gravy Bones, like what's I'm thinking of that removes colors? Blanche. Taking the color off of Gravy Bones cards so they can't play Watery Grave shit because none of their cards are blue anymore. Could impact could impact Syndra's. Like there could be splash damage that happens from that too. So I think we're not quite in the triangle of decks meta, and I think that's a good thing. We are in the rock paper scissors meta of combo, aggro, control, like that we're in, which is TCGs since the dawn of time. Aggro beats combo beats control beats aggro, right? Like, sure. I think that's how it worked. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's aggro beats control. That never feels right. No, aggro never was good against control. I think I'm right the first time. Anyway, I've been drinking. It's fine. But the stability of this meta, I think, is epically good. And now that we're seeing high seas prices calm down, some product availability come back around, we're going to continue to see that kind of be the case where people are going to be able to play their heroes, but we have a conversation about that now. Darick, why do we have to keep doing this?
I don't know.
Okay. So I wrote this in the notes as such. Battered to a pulp, ? Is this fucked? ?
Which,
Darick,
bravo. I'm the one who wanted this added to the show notes. I'll start this by saying I don't know that I feel a certain way one way or another at the moment. But I've seen a fair amount of discourse about it. So if you're not familiar, Battered to a Pulp is one of the promo cards that is floating around. It is a Guardian card. It is something that costs 6, attacks for 10. It's Guardian, so of course it blocks for 3. But it costs 6, attacks for 10, but also has the crush effect of when it deals 4 or more damage to a hero, you destroy an equipment they control with no defense value. I think it also had something where basically if it's going to do 4 or more, that damage can't be prevented. Correct. Which is also nice for
Oasis Respites.
Oasis Respites, those angels with ward that are pesky, right? That sort of thing. So it's got uses. I don't know personally if it's good enough to make an 80 at the moment, but it's certainly the most attractive it's been simply because of the meta, right? Like if Gravy Bones is going to be popular, we just got to see how good it was when Jarl was able to blow up Compass, for example, right? So having something for the other ones, right? Bravo, in particular, when you can dominate this thing, like, yeah, it takes a 4-card hand, but if you get rid of Compass, like, that's a pretty big deal, right? There is not many of these in circulation right now. We know that more are coming at Gen Con. I think the first ones were at Pro Tour.
They're ProQuest.
ProQuest Singapore.
Top 8s. Yeah, ProQuest top 8s.
ProQuest top 8s for Singapore. And there's one other event. But the concern that was floating around is that it's already been confirmed that these are not going to be in the like Guardians Mastery Pack set, right? Doesn't mean they are not going to show up later. They could show up later, but for right now, circulation is low. Does not seem like there's going to be a massive influx anytime soon. And right now, most places are pretty well sold out. Like if you go to TCG Player, for example, the cheapest one that was on there before we started recording, because we looked, was $65, and that's for damaged, right? Lightly playeds were, I think there was like a play set at 80, and then the rest were like 100 or more. And keep in mind, unlike with Blaze, you can't just get one of these, right? Like the complaint when Blaze was floating around was, you know, hey, this is, you know, expensive and it's a promo only thing and it's, you know, prohibiting. And, you know, I understood the concerns then, but like part of it was you only also had to do it once. And I still stand by the same thing that I said then, which is I do think Blazes will show back up in the future at some point. I also think this card will be printed again at some point. But since we don't know when, theoretically, if you are somebody who was like, I want to play Guardian and I want to play a set of these because I believe this is a meta where I need them, having to spend, you know, $300 is a problem, right? So I do also believe, now hear me out, you could say like, well, you know, this is no different than any of the other stuff, right? Flesh and Blood has historically been expensive, and we've talked about that ad nauseum on this show. But the difference is that usually the cards at this price point are your generics. Like that's the thing that really jumps out to me. Right now, it is essentially cheaper to get a play set of Command and Conquerors that I can use for a plethora of heroes, a veritable cornucopia, if you will. This is just Guardian, right? And it's not even a card I always want in my deck. It's just something that I might want to include in the 80, right? It's something that I would potentially consider as a sideboard card for some matchups. So I truly feel like this price point is only reflective of the scarcity at the moment. And so like that's where my concern lies, is that these, you know, constructed, legal, playable promos, if they're going to be slow rolled out across events like this at the forefront, it creates a feels bad for the end consumer. Yeah. Now it would be nice even if you know, we knew when they were going to be printed later, right? So like let's say they were coming in the Guardian Mastery thing. It still wouldn't have helped anyone who say like wanted to play it this weekend. Right. So, or
maybe they're in the Valda Armory deck.
I mean, maybe that could very well be a spot. Like I said, who knows? I don't know when. I just know that they've confirmed it's not in that set, and the prices are wild. So I moderately defended Blaze. I was like, yes, that's a feels bad. 100%. However, I at least like had trust that they would show up eventually, and at least you only had to buy the one. This is a step in the wrong direction at this point in time.
Yeah, and I think that part of it is legality. There's really no reason to have the card legal, you know, prior to Guardian Mastery Pack or something, or whenever this would get another printing. A lot of it, I think a lot of it is because they had already had this lined up, and we were supposed to already have Guardian Mastery Pack.
I mean, that is part of it. I just feel like, I just personally feel like the next solution for something like this is simply saying that cards that are strictly of promo rarity aren't legal till they're printed in a set, right? Like, or you can come get your promo ones early, and then maybe you don't need to hunt for them when it's released in a set later, or maybe not a set, or like in an armory or in or whatever. But like they have to be in something that is more broadly available. Yeah, I would even gem packs, right? Like if these were floating around in gem packs, but the promo was a special version or whatever. But right now, like the number in circulation is just not
high enough.
It's not
really.
not meeting the demand,
No.
right? And here's the other thing, right? I love Guardian. Assassin's my favorite class. Guardian's my second favorite. I'll always have special places in my heart for my Guardian folks. But like, let's be honest with ourselves. It's still not like a super popular class, and it's not widely represented right now. And this is still what the prices are.
Imagine
like,
if this was the best deck, right?
Or just a popular one. Like, imagine this was a playable promo for Gravy Bones that we had no way else to get, right?
Yeah.
Imagine that it started as a Verdance card that went under the radar, but then, you know, let's say Majin wins it with it in his deck, and then it spikes or whatever, right? Like,
sure.
That's like, we're already seeing it is something that's potentially going in the wrong direction already for something that is an underrepresented class. Like, that's all I keep thinking about is like, imagine that this was, you know, and again, I understand this isn't even like a staple for the class. Imagine this was a staple ally for a Gravy Bones list that was only released at those events right now.
Yeah.
Right? They'd be double. They'd be $200 a pop. You'd have to drop $600 for a playset. It'd be absurd.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you raise a good point. This, again, a lot of this is skewed because of legality, how things have come out. I mean, this thing could even be in Smash Palace, honestly. I mean, we don't know.
We don't know.
And you know, because of the delay, they already had these printed as promos and ready to go for a ProQuest season, and so that they had to kind of say, hey, you know, ProQuest season, these are going to be legal on June 6th for nationals or whatever, and it's just like, sure. But yeah, if you want to play this card, it's going to cost you. That's basically it. Ready for some listener questions?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. First one is from Pucks on Us. Got any fabled hot takes?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Can I hear one? Just can I hear one?
Oh, you wanna hear it?
Just one.
Okay. Here. My hot take is that, where is it? I want to make sure that I
mean, I've got a couple. Nope. He's not. He's trying to find it. I'll give you one of mine while you look.
See, this is why I wanted to look, because I thought I had the name wrong, and I'm glad that I looked, because then I definitely have the name wrong, because it's not coming up with what I thought. So I'll just say this. The Heavy Hitters Fable should be a meta staple for every deck.
Deathmatch Arena?
Yeah, Arena, that's it.
Yeah. What did you think it was?
I thought it was a pit.
Oh, gotcha. So like a staple as in like it's a macro that starts in play?
No, like everybody should be running it. It's broken. Imagine it costs 0, it has go again, and it allows you to attack any opposing hero. Tell me that's not just insane.
Well, you only have one opposing hero.
Yeah, but when you deal lethal damage, you get to create gold tokens.
But the game's over.
But you'll have gold tokens. You said hot takes.
I guess that's pretty hot. Mine is that there should be animated movies of the correct Hans Christian Andersen fables. I think that would be better suited to teach kids the horrors of life. And also that the Fable video game series is an example of some of the best video games that are also simultaneously bad. Because Peter Molyneux promised like this revolutionary video, always living, always evolving video game, and Fable wasn't it. Fable was very good and fun to play, but it did not have the promise of being the most revolutionary game of all time. And I think that disappointment with how long it took for the game to come out, made it so that it is, also bad. So it does, to me, it occupies two spaces in time. Those are my Fable hot takes.
All right. Well, since we're doing that, I have another Fable hot take.
All right.
Aesop's fables is the reason we have furries.
I can't argue that. I can't. Yeah. Probably. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Moving on. The next one's from Quiet Mind 42, enjoying the coverage of Germany. How hard was it to do an entire stream together without cursing? Oh my fucking god. It was difficult at times. I can be professional. I think that's lost on people. And I can restrain myself and rein it in when I need to. I just don't like to. It's just boring sometimes. Now, in the context of covering games, it's not boring. In the context of covering games, it's just making sure that you're not alienating your audience, but you are, still doing something enjoyable. If it's, corporate America, that's fucking nonsense, man. Like, just drop bombs. It's fine. It seems like the US is good at that anyway.
No notes.
Nope. That's about it. Got anything for that one?
No. I don't have a hard time not cursing when I don't need to. Like, I prefer when I can curse because it just feels more authentic.
Like punctuation.
I mean, there's actually been studies done that show that, like, the cursing stuff correlates with honesty and a bunch of other things too, because it's just usually something done when you are not doing what I'm doing right now, right? Which is like pre-filtering what you're saying. It's usually just raw. So I prefer when I have that level of openness. Not that I have the mouth of a sailor by any stretch, but every now and then, like, sometimes you're just like, what the fuck? But yeah, like, it also, I don't know. I work a day job, and I know how to turn professionalism on and off, and
yeah,
it didn't even bat an eye.
No, it actually wasn't that difficult.
Now, going an entire broadcast without sounding like Mike Tyson, that's a bit more difficult.
Yeah, you failed that one. You failed that skill check, so it happens. Next one's from Double D, new player here. Why is High Seas already sold out everywhere? Zero stock in all stores near me seems to be counter to attracting new players. Well, you're clearly new. High Seas encountered, Hunted and High Seas, and to a degree Rosetta, encountered a couple of simultaneous what the fucks. Rosetta was a lot of returning players and new growth, specifically in Japan, causing a lot of supply issues because I should just go back in time even further. Okay. So if you go back and you look at print runs on LSS's website for Monarch and Tales of Aria, you'll see that number is absolutely gigantic when you compare it to Arcane Rising, and we'll say Crucible, but Crucible's a supplemental set, so Arcane Rising's really the one you want to compare it to. And the reason being that LSS was under the impression that the product was flying off the shelves and their secondary prices were alarmingly high, and so they needed to print more to do something about it, which they did. But it turns out that one of their partners in North America, were sandbagging boxes back so they could charge more later. And so that's why when you look on shelves in stores that carry Flesh and Blood, they almost always still have Tales of Aria and Monarch available, even though those sets went out of print forever ago. Because there's just tons of it. So when they restructured Flesh and Blood, what they call Fab 2.0, they reined in a lot of the print runs and they stopped doing first edition and unlimited. So now they kind of had the same print runs for quite a while with these sets, and it was a sweet spot, really. Things didn't get hard to find until they were ready to cycle out for the next set. You could find things at the ready, and it was fine. Couple of outliers there, but for the most part, it was fine. Then there was the introduction of Japanese language product and events showing up in Japan. And when that happened, we had another spike in player growth, and we also had a spike in player growth, in the US, and South America really came on board around the same time. So all of a sudden, your player base is much larger, but you had locked in print run numbers for sets that were already at the printer. And when you're talking about printers that print card games, you reserve spots on their calendar for your shit to get done. It's not like you can just call them and say, hey, I need 30,000 more boxes of this thing. And they'll say, yeah, we'll get it to you next week. That's not how it works. Not even remotely close. These things are locked in and printed well ahead of time and are not correctable or fixable with a time frame, within any reasonable time frame, unless you're a mega corporation like Hasbro that can just throw out whatever money it needs to make it happen. So we had Rosetta underprinted, Hunted underprinted, and then we come to High Seas. High Seas, you had multiple issues. So first we have the North American tariff nonsense, coupled, that threw international or domestic, international shipping into a complete tizzy. And so containers were not getting unloaded from ships. They were sitting in dry dock because nobody wanted to unload a container, because as soon as it gets unloaded, you have to pay whatever the fucking tariff is. So they were just waiting for tariffs to change so that they could then unload the container without having to pay the immense tariff. And then those containers didn't make it back to their original locations. And so they didn't get loaded with new product to come back over. It's a lot, right? And so what you're seeing now is a trickle of High Seas as it comes in. There is still concern that it's underprinted, and it probably is. And that because of that underprinting, stores are going to see basically a wave, maybe a small second one, and that's it. Because there just isn't enough to go around. I'm pretty sure the LSS has corrected this for upcoming sets. At least I hope they have. But that's why you're not seeing the set readily available right now. Is demand is high, supply is low, and no one really knows if/when more is coming. A lot of stores also, when they got product in, I know locally this happened a ton, rather than have the product on the shelves, they sandbagged it back for events so that they had it for drafting and prizes and armories and stuff like that. Hopefully that's helpful, but that's kind of the best I have to explain it.
That's a good summary.
Do my best.
I don't think I have anything else really. I mean, that's really it. It's just games really good, games really popular, and there's which is the entire story of LSS's existence really, but there's just world events that are occurring that are also messing things up.
Right. Right. And most of them are the United States' fault. So there's that.
Are you saying COVID was the United States' fault?
The spread of COVID probably was.
Yeah, probably.
Next one is from Zaris. I need your opinions on the hotly contested M&M debate. Is this hotly contested? I have people around me that still say that plain M&Ms are the best. However, I think that their low tier trash and peanut M&Ms are S tier. Thoughts? Okay, so a couple of things. Whoever these people that are telling you that plain M&Ms are the best are not your friends. You need to understand these people do not have your best interests at heart and cannot be trusted. Anybody that thinks that either is delusional or allergic to peanuts, also a possibility, or have never discovered things like pretzel M&Ms or the crispy M&Ms, which are clearly superior. Peanut M&Ms at S tier, I think that's a reasonable take, if nothing else. I do love the pretzel M&Ms. I also love the peanut butter M&Ms. But I grew up, my dad was a giant fan of peanut M&Ms. He'd have one of those giant bags of them that he would have sitting on his little table next to his recliner while he watched television, and snack on peanut M&Ms all the time. Like, just grew up around that. But yeah, plain M&Ms, no, that ain't it. They're decent in like a popcorn. There's also just dark chocolate M&Ms, which are better than just plain really M&Ms. Good. Yeah,
the dark chocolate ones and the mint ones.
Mint M&Ms are good. Yeah,
like, those ones are really good. So here's my take. If you're talking strictly by themselves, then peanut M&Ms are the best. S tier easy in my mind. I love them. They're like candy crack cocaine. If they're anywhere open, like you talk about, you know, your dad, I would graze on them. Like, if there are open peanut M&Ms in the house, it becomes every time I walk past that station, I take a handful. Like, they are just great.
They are fantastic.
But outside of that, there are ones that I prefer to peanuts when I'm doing other things with them. So the dark chocolate ones, if I'm making like homemade M&M ice cream, I love the dark chocolate ones with ice cream. I like just plain M&Ms when I make like a homemade trail mix, like just pretzels, plain M&Ms, whatever, because I don't want usually I want to put like peanuts or cashews or whatever else in there naturally, and I don't want that also with the M&M because I'm already including it. So the M&M is just there for a little bit. Yeah, like the other M&Ms I usually prefer with stuff, but like if I'm ever just buying M&Ms and that's all it's just the M&Ms. You go to a movie theater, hey, I'm gonna buy candy and it's gonna be M&Ms, it's gonna be peanut, just every time.
Yeah. I will, if it's like I want to like rein in my M&M consumption, that's when I switch to the peanut butter ones, because I can't eat as many of them before it's like, oh, this is too sweet, I've just overloaded myself. The problem I find with peanut M&Ms is that they are so less sweet than the other non-dark chocolate M&Ms that you can just fucking hammer a bag of them without even thinking about it. And so if I'm trying to rein myself in, I'm usually going to gravitate towards a different M&M. But if I'm just like, fuck it, we ball mode, yeah, it's peanut M&Ms all day. Like, that's not a question. Hopefully that helped you out, Zaris. Next one's from Blaze Storm, value member of the Patreon. What's y'all's opinions of Oath of Loyalty in both Syndra and Fang? Been playing a lot of Fang and found it clunky, and now the deck is humming without it. Thanks for everything. I think it's worse in Fang. That much is true. It is. So for those that don't know, it's a 0-for-4 go again. Has to be the first action of the turn. After playing it, you can only play draconic actions, right? So Oath of Loyalty, basically in a deck like that doesn't have ways to make more draconic actions, really, and that has a lot of non-draconic cards. I guess it's not even actions, it's cards. It's draconic cards. So if you have in Fang, like let's say you don't have any spare fealty hanging around, because fealty gets around it. If you don't have any spare fealty hanging around, then you have a Blade Flurry in hand, you just can't play it, right? It's just a dead card. if you have Oath of Loyalty, or you have to not play the Oath of Loyalty. Like, those are your options. Now, it's pretty easy, because if you look at your hand and you realize that those are your options and you're at fealty already, fine. Like, block with the fucking thing. It blocks for 3. Or, if that's not a thing and you still have to pay for attacks, just pitch it to pay for attacks. Or, if, you know, you've stripped their hand on the last turn and you have it and nothing to block with, you know, there's no reason to block with it and you don't have to pitch it, just slap it in the arsenal at the end of turn. It's fine. But so I think that it's still okay. I don't think I would play 3.
Yeah, that's what I was. I was just going to wait till my part, and I was just going to say I think that it's a fine card. I just don't know that I want 3 of them. Now, and my barometer for that is that you just don't want multiples in your hand, right?
Right. Yep.
So you want to draw it and be able to use it sometimes, but not all the time. So it's a 1 or a 2 of in my mind, personally. But I think
I'm still okay with 3 of in Syndra.
Really?
Mainly because it's a Draconic starter. You have more ways, because the fealty are not irrelevant's the wrong word, but the fealty are less important to Syndra, so you can kind of blow them as needed. You also have Brand with Cinder Claws, which make your next thing Draconic. So you can just, you know, Brand helps you play around it too. And then additionally, if you have multiples in hand, like arsenaling a Draconic starter is great, and you also have some things that cost 1. So pitching it and saving a counter on your chess piece is also fine. So there have been times that I've gone down to 2 when I've been playing Syndra, but I vacillate between 2 and 3. I think 3 is still fine in Syndra. Fang, I would only play 2. But I know that not everyone agrees with that take. Some people cut it entirely. Some people insist on playing 3. It just kind of depends.
Yeah. I guess.
Oh, you guess. Okay, fine. Last question is from Dustin. What resources do you look at to get better at a draft format? Okay. So there are a few different things. One, there are, like right now, I look for write-ups. I look for people who do content on strategic content, and try to read through what they have out there. Right now, like on the Mothership is a draft guide for high seas written by Simon Nielsen. That's really good. Try to read through those. The other one is actually drafting the set. So there are a couple of different methods for that. I know not everybody has product available locally. Like most people don't have product available locally. But if you join the Runaways Discord, they have a draft setup in there for people to practice drafting, where they have basically got a rough estimate of what the aggregation and collation of the packs are, and use that to build a draft database that you can upload into one of the custom draft websites that's out there to build a custom draft. And from there you can draft and export the decks to Fabrary, which allows you to play them on Talishar, so you can practice drafting through there. And it's a really good resource. I used it prior to Pro Tour London. I think I drafted once on it leading up to Nats, because it was a mad scramble anyway, and the drafts, the refined version of their draft setup really wasn't out until like the day before Nats, so that was difficult, because sometimes if it's not accurate, you really can't trust what you're seeing. But once it's built and set up, it's great. So I love that resource. But ultimately, like, nothing replaces playing drafts in paper, if you can. And not everybody has that luxury, especially with right now due to high seas availability, as well as, you know, a lot of times you just finding 8 players to draft with, you know, it gets hard. So But there are resources out there that you can read and that you can look at. For overall, like, generic draft strategy, there are a few different articles and videos out there from content creators that kind of outline the basic value principles of Flesh and Blood, and applying those broadly to drafting new sets is usually helpful. That's about it. Darick?
I agree with most of that. I think the other thing, so if you have a group of people around you, and that are all looking to like get better, there's other fun mental exercises that you can do, right? So if you're opening packs at a store, don't just open the pack, open a pack, fan it out, say to your friends, all right, pack one, pick one. What do you grab from this, right? And then have people explain it why. That's one of the things that you can always do as a fun mental exercise. Another thing you can do, again, if you're like playing with a team or whatever, you could start a draft, right? And then when you're like 3 picks in, just have everybody stop and then say like, okay, what do you think the person who's passing to you is playing, right? That'll teach you hopefully how to identify like what people are drafting, because you always hear like draft your seat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how to read signals. And there are certainly tips that you can find on doing that. But if you're with a group of people and they're, you know, okay with getting better and blah, 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 like just get into a position where you should be deciding that and then stop and have everyone guess and then learn, right? Say like, you know, why did you guess this, blah, blah, blah. Those are other things. So everything else I think Logan nailed, but there's just like fun mental exercises that you can do as well when you're just trying to get better.
Yeah, I agree. Well, buddy, that's our show. I think I'm just going to thank some patrons and we're going to get out of here because both of us still haven't fucking slept correctly.
No, dude, I'm all over the place.
Same. But let's thank our patrons. We have Andy, our associate producers, Andy, Sindra, Ejor, Jacob, Quiet Goat, Salty Sea Cat Dog. That's not so much to say. I can just say fucking Anthony. Sofsky and Zaris. Then we have our executive producers, Blaze Storm, value member of the Patreon, Diana, John, Micaiah, Paxana, Sergeant Eastbjorn, Vintox, and Philip. And then the esteemed members of the Chamber of Charcoal. Brandon, we need to get you in here. I will be reaching out to you shortly, maybe even potentially for next week. Matt, I've been talking to you all night. So thank you again for all your support. Papa Jackal, the OG, the GOAT, thank you for being everything to this show. And then Polish guy Rich, one of our most ardent and longtime supporters. Love that guy too. Was a great guest, and he'll be lapping the field again shortly to hop back on. So, you know, if you're interested in becoming a member of our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. Fucking pick a tier it's paid or whatever. And then you can also attend our FAP After Darks, which are live shows we do roughly monthly. We try to gather up a group of people to do them so that there isn't dead air necessarily. It's interactive. You can ask us, you can talk to us, you can hop on camera, you can not hop on camera, whatever the fuck you want to do. No one cares. And then we just kind of, it's not recorded, so we just kind of talk about whatever we want to talk about at the time. Sometimes it's structured, most of the time it's not. But sometimes you get to watch Bryn's heartbreak because the Knicks shit the bed or whatever. So yeah, it's a fun time, and everybody kind of hangs out and just talks and vibes together. If you need to contact the show, you can send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. Link is in the show notes, as is our link to our YouTube, which would, if you're listening to this and you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, like, please do, I guess. Plus the VODs for Germanettes are up there too. We will most likely, now that I kind of understand it, be doing some more live stream type stuff. So be on the lookout for that as well.
Yeah, some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you, you need to find us on socials, just search Flesh and Pod on BlueSky. Best way to find us there. The ultimate best way for everything is just join the Discord. Links in the show notes. Click on it. join, don't have to pay for anything. Isn't members only. You can opt into the different roles that we have, because we have several that allow people to view some of the locked channels, like Kierkegaard's Corner, which is all about existential dread, and then our adult beverage channel, which is a lot of people tend to say a lot in that channel too, because we all enjoy imbibing, or most of us at least do. Darick, where can they find you?
In the Discord, I'm at IMJO. No, I'm just at Charmer in the Discord. I won't do that to him.
You're not going to bury Jordan again?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was thinking about it after you were like, man, I should have left the login stuff sent to his phone, and I was like, yeah, it's been a while since we've blown him up. I miss him.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
No, in the Discord, just at charmer.com on BlueSky.
That's Charm
Other
3R,
projects floating around. You can Google them if you
names.
want. I'm really bad at this, but the Discord, that's the main one.
Yeah, it seems like we're both adding projects on top of ourselves when we don't have capacity to add more projects. So, yeah, it's whatever. We both have dreams. It's just most of them are nightmares.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I got, buddy. I think that we're good for this week, and then we'll do something weird for 187 because murder is the case that they gave me.
Sure.
Not a Snoop Dogg guy, huh?
No, I'm definitely a Snoop guy. Snoop Dogg guy.
Maybe you are just Mike Tyson.
Snoop. I'm a Snoop guy.
I'm a Snoop Dogg guy. Okay, fuck it. We're
also,
tired.
speaking of the Discord, shout out to the folks that were posting about those cool metal tokens, because I just ordered a bunch from Etsy.
Yeah, people have given me a ton, and so I have a bunch of stuff for marked and fealty tokens right now, and then I have a cold foil marked token. I don't have a cold foil fealty token because I need to get a marble one.
I don't have a cold foil marked one. I need to get one.
They're great. I love them. It's weird because I have this. I'm kind of torn because the Japanese marked tokens are also fantastic, because it's like, I think I have one right over here. Maybe I don't. Shit.
Well, part of the reason I'm getting these metal ones is because right now I have so many cold foil like tokens and whatever that I'm dragging, and I'll probably still have them in my deck box in case the judges are like, no, you have to use the real card. But if I'm going to be flopping them around the table all the time, I'd rather just have something a little sturdier. So I just snagged a bunch of these really cool metal ones that Zaris had shared.
Yeah, they're really cool. So
the marked one for that with the Ratney on it was what sold me. So
yeah, that one's really good.
Haven't seen it? Join our Discord and click on the link.
Yeah. So that's our show for this week. Please remember to drive safe. I don't fucking know. Be
safe. Make good choices.
That's the one.
Don't take a life. Don't make a life.
Unless you're trying to.
Or just don't.
I mean, valid. All right. Well, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.